Okay, that's enough. Alright, so after 25 laps or so, I'm going to review what the car looks like. What we're going to need to, additional setup steps we're going to need to do. Focus here. So what we can see is the chassis is actually dragging. We can see the stripes here, the marks on the chassis. You can see the tape on the motor is all tore off. The stripes on the chassis come all the way from the front. So it is touching, the chassis is touching all the way through the motor. Do not see any stripes back here at the back, so it's not touching at the back. But it's dragging all the length of the chassis, and the motor is all dragging. Looking at the braids up front, their wear pattern looks perfect. There's no major gouges here at the very front. There's nothing gouged right here. So the major touching is going on right here. Might lower the front axle like a half a turn on the set screws, just to bring it down a bit more. The front looks to be set pretty good, but the drag starts right after the guide. Let's set this back on the test block. There we go. We can see there that the chassis is off the ground. The chassis is actually lifted in the front. Let's slide the car back. Cannot see any light under the chassis past the wheels. All the way till you get to the back tires, the rear end. When you first start seeing light underneath the chassis right in front of the back tires. There you go, right there, so you can see the light. So what I need to do right now is to get rid of this tape that's tore off the motor, because it's actually blocking some of the view, so we can see into the car to see where it starts dragging the chassis. So I'm going to cut this tape away, put it back on the setup block, and see when the dragging actually starts. Okay, I've cleaned off the loose bits of tape there. Set it back on the block. Get a view under the car. Yeah, we can see under it there. Just barely under. So we lose it right about there under the driver area. So it's actually down on the track. So let me get my feeler gauge here. Yep, it's touching the track right there under the driver. So right back here, which would be the engine area, it's free. You can go up back and forth under the car. Right behind the driver is where it's actually touching the test track. Though it is too low. So when I look at it from the rear end, get the rear end focus. Not enough light to get that in focus. Let's get this light. Okay, so we can see now underneath the rear end, there's plenty of space. This feeler gauge has lots of free space. You can see the feeler gauge under there, so it's got lots of room. So our rear tires are plenty tall, so we got to cut them down a little bit when we true them. There's plenty of room here. Come up front, And you can see in front of the front tires there's plenty of room. Right here behind the front tires, that's where it starts dragging. I do believe I have read from one other racer, actually from a wood track, that this chassis is too soft with that single magnet. It's got one single magnet right here in the center. The magnet is right there, right in front of the screw. That hole in the chassis, there's a magnet behind that hole. That is the only single chassis that comes stock with this car. They are saying that that magnet is enough to bow the chassis, that the chassis is actually flexing and coming lower in the center of the car. See, plenty of room in the behind, enough room in front of. Right here in the middle is where it starts dragging. So if we're going to run magnets, we're probably going to have to go with the hardest chassis, which I do believe is a green one. I'm going to look that up right now. Yeah, so here it is in the catalog. The stock chassis that comes with the car is this medium one, 1621. 1622 and 1623 is available, hard and extra hard. And I've already read there on the internet racers complaining on the wood tracks that this chassis is too soft and flexes in the middle. So I will be ordering probably both 22 and 23 hard and extra hard, just to see which one of them is best. Resolve this issue of the car dragging even before we true the tires. Okay, while we still have the car here before we do any additional tuning, there's a few of the things I wanted to point out. The tires, we haven't trued them. This is straight out of the box. We just put the set screws in the front. That's all we've done. But you can see on the tire wear, the two outer edges are worn. Right down the middle is not worn at all. It's completely not touching the track. It's unworn, still shiny from new, and that's on both sides. So this is one of the obvious reasons to tell you, hey, I need to true the tires. I need to cut the tires down to match them on the rim. So what we're going to be doing in the next steps is actually gluing the tires to the rims and then truing them down on the tire truer. As far as size goes, I believe these rear tires are as low as they could go. In fact, when I order the harder chassis, I'm probably going to order some larger tires. And definitely wider. I read that these tires were supposed to be 13 millimeters wide. I measured them the other night and they were only 12. Just measuring with our calipers. And you can see there, 12.49 for the width of a mounted tire. That should be 13. I measured the rims and they measured only 10. So I do believe these are smaller rims. Maybe the test car came with smaller wheels and tires, but I would probably be ordering the larger 13 millimeter wide rims and tires. The fronts were just like they were supposed to be. They were 10s. It's a little tight. There you go. 9 on the fronts. That was the front tire I just measured. Right there. 9s. As far as the front wear goes, it's fairly even all the way across. But that's really irrelevant because what we're going to do is harden these tires. They're already pretty hard tires, but we're going to harden them more by putting super glue on them. We're going to turn them down a bit and harden them so they don't grip at all. There will be no wear. They will just slide across the track. This is what we want because the front tires aren't pulling and they aren't steering. The guide is actually what does all the steering. So you just need the front tires for stabilization. So we want them nice and hard. So that's what we'll be doing in the next step is truing our back tires, putting more oil on them, softening them up, getting more grip out of them, and hardening the front. So that's the steps that we're going into next.